Okay. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee for today, Tuesday, March 24th. I've been joined by council members Warsami, Reich, Fry, and Quincy. Councilmember Kano is not in town and will not be joining us today. We have a fairly lengthy agenda, including a number of public hearings, but before we start, I first want to move the consent agenda. These are items 12 through 20. Are there any items on the consent agenda anyone would like to pull off for discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to move all of the items on the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. And we'll move on to our first item, which is a presentation honoring Eric Hansen for his 12 years of service at the City of Minneapolis. In my briefings this morning, we had a discussion about who would get to present this, and Jacob won. So Councilmember Fry will be presenting this resolution this morning. Sure, that'd be great. Doesn't it feel good to be on this side? Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So normally when you give a presentation like this, it comes from an individual that has been at the city for 15 or 20 years, having seen staff work through 10 trillion projects, and they can give their perspective from the history. I can give my perspective from being extremely green behind the ears, coming in only about a year ago, and probably not knowing what the heck I was doing on a lot of elements. And he just said, yeah, that's right. And which gets me to my first point. Eric Hansen has always been a guy who you can trust to be very blunt with you. He's not the sort of deferential, bow down, just agree with whatever the stupid proposal a council member is putting forward. He's willing to tell you, you know what, I think that X, Y, and Z that you're proposing, one of them is a good idea, but two of them are absolutely horrible. And I could really appreciate that coming into my first year. And I had the privilege of working with Eric Hansen on numerous different projects, but the one that I think was certainly highlighted most was the Nicollet Hotel block. And this is a block that Eric has been involved with for many, many years before I came on the council. But through his expertise, through his involvement, and through constant engagement and collaboration with myself and other members of the staff, we were able to come to what I think is a tremendously successful result. We are going to miss you. But it sounds like you are most definitely moving up in the world, and for very good reason. You are so talented. So, without further ado, this is the resolution, and we're going to be getting the fancy version over to Eric during the council meeting on Friday with the leather binding and the fancy bound paper and everything. This is honoring Eric Hansen for 12 years of service to the city of Minneapolis. Whereas Eric Hansen has served the city of Minneapolis for over 12 years through his employment with the Minneapolis Community Development Agency and the Community Planning and Economic Development Department, CPED, and whereas Eric's diverse skills and aptitudes led to his involvement in the planning and implementation of a multitude of redevelopment projects throughout the city that will continue to provide enormous benefits to the residents, neighborhoods, and businesses, communities of Minneapolis for years to come. And whereas among Eric's many notable accomplishments are his leadership in the redevelopment of the southeast corner of Penn and Lowry Avenues, bringing an Aldi grocery store to North Minneapolis, the redevelopment of 1101 West Broadway, transforming a derelict tax forfeited property into the headquarters of Emerge, spearheading early city financial support and sponsorship for an economic development administration grant to facilitate the renovation of the former North Branch Library as the Emerge Technology Center, bringing a transparency and fairness to the city's management of commercial parking lots in Cedar Riverside, and his active, engaged support of small businesses on Nicollet Avenue during the reconstruction of that important commercial corridor. And whereas Eric was a long-serving member of the CPED Labor Management Committee, bringing positive energy and creative ideas for collaboration to that body. And whereas Eric has also served the community in other ways, including serving on the Minneapolis Bicycle Advisory Committee when the bicycle master plan was being prepared, and serving for many years as an election judge. I didn't know that. Including helping facilitate the first use of ranked choice voting. And whereas Eric's knowledge, skills, integrity, and dedication to his profession, along with his even-tempered and positive approach to his work and his steadfast willingness to mentor and advise colleagues have earned him the deep respect and affection of his colleagues. And whereas Eric grew up in the Linden Hills neighborhood, attended Minneapolis public schools, graduated from the Southwest High School and the University of Minnesota, and is raising his family in the Victory neighborhood. And whereas Eric departed employment with the city of Minneapolis to pursue a promotional opportunity at the city of Brooklyn Park, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Minneapolis that on behalf of the citizens of the City of Minneapolis, the City Council honors and commends Eric Hansen for his service and thanks him for many contributions to the quality of life in the city. Be it further resolved that the members of the City Council wish Eric much personal fulfillment and professional growth during his next stage of his career.
For those who know me, Councilmember Fry asked me to say a few words, and for those who know me, we could be here for a while. So I want to respect the time that you guys have for a lot of the items on the agenda and just say thank you for this resolution. I'm very touched. I want to acknowledge what my wife is here. I did drag her to a city council meeting for the first time in 12 years. So I want to honor her commitment to this body as well. And thanks to the members of the committee and the city council and then all the staff members that I've worked with and colleagues over the years. It's been a wonderful time at Minneapolis. Thank you.
And I'll note that the item referred to in the resolution, which is item number 16, the Nicollet Hotel Block, awarding exclusive development rights to United Properties, was passed already on consent, which says something about the work that Eric and now Casey have done. So we'll then move on to our public hearing agenda, which is relatively lengthy, starting with item number 2, which is a land sale at 2933 Fifth Avenue South and 2937 Fifth Avenue South. Ms. Oates, welcome.
Madam Chair, committee members, it's my understanding that a site plan and front facade was not included in the report. I do have those. Do you want me to
Sure,
put them up here? And
that'd be great.
hopefully they'll fit. This is the front facade of the proposed 2 6-unit buildings. The developer is looking at building essentially with that gateway along the lot line, and there will be a sidewalk that leads in, and there will be townhouses on either side. The developer is proposing to build the 6-unit buildings. The structures will be anticipated and marketed to be sold for about $150,000 a unit. They will be marketed to Cedar Riverside residents initially. The developer has numerous connections in the neighborhood and is working with many of the neighborhood organizations to fulfill housing for the immigrant population is going to be one priority of the development. I think this is a very exciting development. The city's owned these 2 lots for quite some time. This is the second or third proposal that we've had on these lots. I believe this is probably the best one that we've had and would recommend approval of this development. There is some site plan discussion going on with planning and zoning staff, which I'm sure will be resolved.
Are there any questions for Ms. Oates on item number 2? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing on item number 2, which is a land sale at 2933 and 2937 Fifth Avenue South. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I happily move approval of this item.
Item number 2 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. I'll note the staff has recommended that we delete item number 3, which is a land sale at 2600 Irving Avenue North from the agenda because it's been noted as a public hearing. I just want to see if there's anyone here to speak to this issue. Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and move to delete this from the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 4, which is the Corcoran Triangle Project. Ms. Holmes, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Shalonda Holmes, and I'm Senior Project Coordinator in Residential Finance. This is a public hearing for preliminary bond approval in the amount of $13 million for Corcoran Triangle, which is near the intersection of Lake Street and Hiawatha and just one block south of the Blue Line, Lake Street LRT station. You're familiar with this project. Wellington Management is the developer, and Claire Housing will be providing supportive services for 9 of the 135 units. Additional information regarding the project and unit mix is in the report. The total development cost for the project is approximately $25 million. Developer equity is included as a source of funds. A significant amount of the public funding is secure for the project, except Hennepin County AHIF, which will be announced in April. TIF preliminary authorization analysis is currently underway for the project, and at this time, the developer is requesting $13 million in entitlement bonds, which carries a 4% tax credit. The bonds will be supported by first mortgage, a TIF note, and a construction bond that will be paid back by tax credit and syndication proceeds after construction and the building obtains a certificate of occupancy. A detailed description of the funding sources can be found in the project data worksheet. Final TIF and bond approval will be requested later this summer for the project, and anticipated closing date for Corcoran Triangle is in August. I'm open to any questions there might be at this time.
Are there any questions for Ms. Holmes on her report? This is an item we've seen before us since 2010. So a number of people are very familiar with the project. Thank you for your report. Seeing no questions, we'll open the public hearing on item number 4, which is preliminary approval of $13 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Is there anyone here from the project? Okay, just making sure. Keep you on your toes. Anyone would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of this item.
Approval of item number 4 has been moved. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll then move on to item number 5. I will note item number 5 is also related to item number 6, which is related also to item number 7. But because this is a public hearing, I'll do whatever Carrie suggests in terms of the order. Would you like to give the report on everything?
I would, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. I would like to maybe do one brief presentation for all 3 council reports. You do have the detailed recommendations in front of you, and I do realize you may have to open and close the public hearing individually, but I'll go ahead and address them at one time unless you object.
No, please do.
Okay. It's actually great to stand before you today and present this project for your consideration. As you know, Parcel A is located along 2nd Street South between 3rd and 5th Avenues. There is one irregularly shaped parcel owned by a third party, Mill Place Inc., which bisects that parcel. All 3 parcels are currently improved with approximately 400 surface parking spaces. City staff issued a request for proposals on this development back in January 2008, and in 2009, City Council granted exclusive development rights to Eagle Iron Partners. Since then, staff has diligently been working with Eagle Iron Partners on clearing title to the property for conveyance, assembling financing, and then working through development challenges on this site. The project proposed consists of 3 components: Mill City Quarter Apartments on Parcel A West, which I'll point out for you is Phase 1. The Woonerf, which will bisect those 2 buildings and follows the historic rail corridor between the projects and is owned by Mill Place. And then the last component is Abaton Senior Housing, which is located on Parcel A East on the far side. The Mill City Quarter Apartments is a 6-story mixed-use building with 150 affordable housing units that will be primarily marketed to senior housing. There will be approximately 15,000 square feet of retail space, 211 below-grade parking spaces, and 20 surface parking spaces. The Abaton Senior Housing Project is a 5-story building with 103 units of independent senior housing and 48 memory care units. They will have 171 below-grade parking spaces, and they will also have a restaurant on their first floor that will be open to the public. The Woonerf in between is a landscape pathway that will follow the old historic rail corridor right-of-way, dividing the two buildings and providing future access to the Mississippi River. The Woonerf provides public access through the site for pedestrians and bicycles. There's also approximately 75 surface parking spaces, and it also provides vehicular access to both projects. The Woonerf pathway will eventually connect to the amenities along River Road with the development of the Fujiya site, which is currently owned by the Park Board. As one of the recommendations in your staff report, the project is seeking a waiver to the park dedication fee requirement in exchange for the commitments from the development entities to complete and maintain the Woonerf improvements and provide this public access. Pursuant to the parkland dedication ordinances for the projects in the downtown area, up to 100% of the requirements that a development dedicate land or cash for public park purposes may be waived by the city and park board, subject to 4 conditions that were outlined in your staff report. The city and the park board have found through their evaluation that the private land that will be maintained for public use in this unique circumstance offers a public value in excess of the fee, and the value of the improvements in the Woonerf substantially exceed the park dedication fee that would otherwise be applied to this project. And just to give you an idea, the Woonerf is estimated at $430,000, and the fee that would have been collected would have been around $62,000. On February 18, 2015, the Park Board, by resolution, approved the execution of the proposed easement agreement and the subsequent waiver of the land or cash dedication requirement of the parkland dedication ordinances, and we are asking you to approve the same. The total overall development project cost is $76,170,000 for all 3 projects. The Mill City Quarter project has received a tremendous amount of support from the Metropolitan Council in the form of grants totaling $2.5 million, from Minnesota Housing Finance Agency totaling $3.1 million, and from Hennepin County totaling $300,000, as well as from the city's own Affordable Housing Trust Fund program. To close the final gap on the project, the developer has requested to defer payment of $350,000 of the purchase price for the property, and the terms of that are outlined in your report, and that's an approval we're seeking as well. Finally, the Mill City Quarter project is also seeking the preliminary and final approval of up to $22 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue entitlement bonds, and that's one of the companion reports. The bonds come with an automatic 4% tax credit, which is equity to the project. And then the third companion report is for the Abaton project, which is also seeking preliminary and final approval up to $32 million in senior housing and healthcare revenue bonds. I do want to point out there's a note in that staff report that the fees being generated for that report or for those bonds was quite specific. That is an approximate. It will be based on the final bond issuance, and that will get calculated. It will be in the same vicinity, though. There are detailed sources and uses in all 3 reports about the project, and the reports do contain all the staff recommendations. The project has received all planning and land use approvals, and plans have been submitted for permit and review, and are hopefully going to be issued soon. A closing and groundbreaking are planned for the project in April 2015. And that's where I'll conclude, unless you have questions. I do know the developers are here also, unless you have questions for them.
Are there any questions for Ms. Black on her report, including reports on 5, 6, and 7? So first, we'll go ahead and do the public hearing, if that's okay.
Yep.
I'm going to first open the public hearing on item number 5, which is approval of the tax-exempt senior housing and healthcare revenue bonds for the Ecumen portion of the project. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'm going to then open the public hearing on the preliminary and final approval of the $22 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds for the Mill City Quarter portion of the project. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? I can't believe it. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and then I'll open the public hearing on item number 7, which is the land sale, including the waiver of the park dedication fee and the small loan in accordance with the term sheet. Is there anyone here to speak to any of the items under item number 7? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and move approval of items 5, 6, and 7. I know Councilmember Fry has some comments. I'll make some comments at the end.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I would like to thank you directly for the years of work on this project leading up to the finale, which has been the last few months. I know it wasn't easy, and I know it wasn't always strawberries and cream for those first few years, and now when it finally looks good, I get to take over and reap all the glory. That being said, seriously, thank you. Also, thank you to Steve and Jackie. I know you guys have been doing this for quite some time as well. This project is, it really, I think, capitalizes, it fulfills a lot of the major goals that I had coming into office. One, I wanted to get rid of surface parking lots. It does it. Two, I wanted affordable housing in middle and upper income areas. It does it. Three, I wanted the ability of constituents and residents to age in place. And this most definitely does that as well. I hate to pick favorites of all the development that we have going on in the Third Ward, but if I had to, this would be way up there. And to add to it, you've got this beautiful Woonarf connection from, right down the old railroad tracks to the river. I think it's positively beautiful. We talk a lot about equity on the city council. And, I've said again and again that I believe that the best strategy to improve equity and reduce our opportunity gap in the city is for everybody to be living amongst each other, regardless of what socioeconomic background you come from and regardless of how old you are. And this is walking the walk in a big way. So I'm really happy about moving this. I believe Chair Goodman will be moving it forward, but I'm very happy that it is being moved forward. Thank you.
Are there further comments? So I just have to really, without getting emotional, thank Shelley for what unbelievable work, as well as Carrie and Nikki Newman and Kathy Pulaski and our team of people who have worked in the Mills District to develop this area piece by piece for 10 years. Every single solitary piece was put in place by our staff with really thoughtful action. And Shelley, as Mr. Min will attest to, spent, 5 years in court trying to work out the title issues, spent a lot of time trying to unwind the parking agreements and try to figure out how to get us from here to there. And no one ever talks about the volume of work that they go through in order to make something like this happen. I mean, this is, in all my years here, I don't think I've seen a more complicated project that has undone so many years of decisions that at the time were good decisions but made no sense going forward. So this piece of property is burdened by a 20-year parking agreement for buildings that surround it, and at the time it made a lot of sense because they were trying to redevelop Crown Roller Mill. And they were trying to figure out how the Crown Roller Mill and Sarasota building that had no parking could move forward. And they had this empty lot next to what was then a brand new River West. And it made sense at the time to say, okay, well, we would get it guaranteed revenue for 20 years because no one ever thought anything would be redeveloped in that area. In fact, then what happened was the depot opened, and that was a gigantic leap of faith by Mayor Sharon Sells-Belton, and Council President Cherry Holmes, and Councilmember Joan Campbell, who on, I think, also a 7-6 or 8-5 vote, put a good amount of energy and effort into making that happen. And things started happening along the line, and this property sat there undeveloped, and it drove those of us working in the Mills District crazy. We met every quarter for more than 6 years to try to figure out what we could do as a group to share information and try to facilitate some sort of development, which culminated in an RFP in 2008, of which there were 3 people who actually replied to the RFP. And I remember, without insulting Mr. Min, we said, we're going to pick the person who we think is the biggest bully in order to try to get this done. We really felt, and any of them will confirm it now, that we really felt if there was anyone who could push through the complicating interjurisdictional and property owner issues as well as legal issues, it would be Councilmember Min. And that's why we picked you. It wasn't really because you offered the most money or because we felt we liked your plan the most, but we thought you'd stick with it the longest. And quite frankly, any other private developer would have given up a long time ago. And that's just the God's honest truth. Anyone else would have thrown up their hands and said, I've spent way too much over way too long, and I'm not going to beg people anymore to do something good. and our staff stuck with you. And I think they've really actually enjoyed working on this immensely. I think more than almost anything else we've worked on in this area, this is a real victory. To see the project that we have is almost beyond our wildest dreams. I think we would have been happy with an apartment building. It didn't have to be senior. It didn't have to be affordable. It didn't have to have a connection to the river. It didn't have to have additional green space. It didn't have to have retail. We thought, well, in the best case scenario, it would have all of those things, but we never thought, I don't think that we would get a project of this magnitude with this many city goals that Councilmember Fry outlined achieved. So it's really very emotionally overwhelming, I'm sure, for those that have worked on it a long time, and Nikki Newman, who's not here, and Kathy Pulaski, who also gave blood to make this happen, that we're at this point. I think all of the deal points are fairly good ones. I don't think this is actually any different, except for more difficult than almost any of the other projects that we've worked on. So I am thrilled that we're moving forward today. I know we have a lot of big items on our agenda. We can talk about the 10 years I've been dealing with the North Nicollet Hotel block and the 18 with the Target Center too. But this one actually provides a level of commitment to this goals of the city that go far beyond almost anything else we have on our agenda today. So I appreciate you all being here. And again, Shelley, just thank you so much for everything you've done. You've just been amazing to work with. So on the motion to approve items 5, 6, and 7, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. We'll then move on to item number 8, and we'll ask Mr. Wilson for his report.
Madam Chair, thank you. We have an application for a rental hall license by Ambient Gallery LLC for a site at 505 First Avenue Northeast. The owner, Dr. Carrie Bodrow, will operate this location as a chiropractic facility during the day and will be used as a rental hall during non-office hours and for events. The applicant has a shared parking agreement and leases 45 parking stalls at 806 14th Avenue Northeast, which is the Banks building. A public hearing is required for this application. We did notify all property owners and residents within 300 feet. To date, we've received no responses for or against the application. The building has been renovated for this use in compliance with our codes, and staff's recommendation is to approve.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Wilson. Are there any questions on item number 8? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 8, which is a new business license at 505 First Avenue Northeast. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will move approval of this item and note that it's really a unique setup to have a chiropractic office associated with a rental hall. But you know, if you go in there, it works really well. So I'm happy to move this forward.
On Councilmember Fry's motion to approve, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 9. Mr. Wilson.
Madam Chair, we have an application for a new restaurant at 3500 Bloomington Avenue South. This is a former site of a neighborhood grocery store. The restaurant will be known as La Ciba Bistro. They are seeking a charter on sale wine and strong beer license with Class C2 entertainment. They will have seating for 57 persons. They do not have plans for an exterior seating area at this time. It will be a full-service restaurant that operates from 7 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. daily. The sole owner of this business is Hector Ruiz, and he owns other restaurants in our city. A public hearing is required. We did a large mailing to residences in the area. We mailed 260 notices. We also notified the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association, the 38th and Chicago Business Association, Lake Street Council, and the Longfellow Business Association. We did receive 14 responses from that notification process. 5 were opposed, 9 are in support of the application. In general, those that are opposed thought that there was not enough parking, that it'll create additional noise in the area, and that it's located too close to Powderhorn Park, which in retrospect, it is a full block away from that park. Our application review finds that this application does meet all the requirements, and staff's recommendation is to approve it.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on his report? Seeing none, we'll open up the public hearing on item number 9, which is a new business license at 3500 Bloomington Avenue South. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Sean Fitzgerald. I live in Powderhorn Park at 1508 East 37th Street. Our neighborhood organization has not had a meeting on this. So I've been trying to get some questions answered, and I'd like to raise those with your committee today. One is on our neighborhood group list, e-democracy list, we were told that the hours of closing would be 10 on weeknights and 11 on weekends, which is fairly common for all the businesses in our neighborhood, including a similar business to Kino's Pizza and the Holiday gas station, which was somewhat controversial, some of you might recall. So I was very surprised to read the city documents, and it looks like the hours are 7 in the morning till 1:30 at night. This is a block from a park in a predominantly residential neighborhood where the other major businesses are a coffee shop and a movie rental and a corner store. And I don't think that the neighborhood knows that. So I've been saying, what can we do to ask for 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock closings? I did ask a question, and I hope this is the correct information. Because I was involved with the Holiday Station, I also spent a number of years on the PPNA Land Use Committee, which used to consider these issues. So I said, would there be a danger of having to extend this to any other business that wants to come in, or businesses like Holiday that in the past have asked for later hours? And I was told the answer was no, that this is a singular instance because it's a liquor license for wine and beer and not for operating hours. So I'd like reassurance that that's correct, because we don't want an exception made. Other concerns, of course, are parking. You know, at this point, there's essentially no parking. And so I feel bad for the people that are going to lose their off-street parking. But I also couldn't tell, where is the loading zone? And there has been problems, not with this restaurant, it's not open, and I wish them the best. I think if we could clarify a few things, it would be easier. But there have been some other restaurants that don't have loading zones, and where one lane of traffic is blocked for several minutes, and it's very inconvenient, you know, because the trucks pull up and they unload their groceries and whatever in the street, and they leave their trucks running and go in. And so I guess I couldn't tell what the plans are for loading. I talked to the staff person, and I don't know the answer to that. So how can we keep it a neighborhood, very small commercial node business with the same hours as Holiday, which is on, Cedar and not Bloomington? And especially since the neighborhood has already been promised these hours. Otherwise, I wouldn't be the only one here. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Bonnie Ray. I live at 3535 15th Avenue South, within a block from this building. And I have two concerns. One of them is, I understand that the owner has acquired access to 4 parking spaces. I don't know where those parking spaces are, and I almost can't even imagine where they are because of all the buildings and the other uses of the property around there. There is a place that has some parking in the back of it, which could be, I'm guessing that might be where it is, but I don't know. And if that's the case, I'm concerned that the access to those spaces are through the alley, which is my alley. And as it is right now, there's, normal residential traffic of the people that live there, but there's also a lot of people that cut through that alley anyway to avoid stoplights that are red at certain times, and it's really busy during the rush hours. The other problem I think exists is that exiting from that alley, when you're driving north from the alley between Bloomington and 15th, and you want to exit onto 35th Street to turn right or left, there are cars that park very close to that alley exit, and you can't see right or left, and access and getting able to turn right or left is really difficult. And so those are my concerns about the parking and the parking close to the alley, and just as the last person said about the excessive parking spaces already, and where are those other 4 spaces? So I'm not against the business, but I think those are some questions that I have and need to be resolved.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chair, Laura Boyd, Alcohol Compliance Services. I'm the licensed consultant for Hector Ruiz, who's to my right, and La Ceiba Bistro. Just to respond to some of the previous concerns, we did meet with PPNA in October. In fact, we had a fairly lengthy, a very nice meeting with that group, and I'm just wondering if perhaps, since that was several months ago, that was the reason why some of the neighbors weren't aware of it. But we did meet with them in October. There was a lot of support for the business at the time. The parking, with respect to the parking for the business, it is fully grandfathered in. So requirement is 4, met through grandfather rights. So there was no actual off-street parking requirement for the business. With respect to hours of operation, it is true that the application does say 7 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. Part of the reason why we did that is Hector wasn't sure what his customer base was going to look like at the time. His other restaurants do close early, and that is his thought on this one as well, probably no later than 11 p.m. on weekdays, and depending on what happens on weekends, maybe 11 or midnight. So part of it is waiting to see who comes and what the demand looks like once he opens his doors. Hector, did you want to speak to the loading issue?
No, part of the restaurant, in the back of the restaurant, there is a loading dock that we're gonna use it, and mostly, I've been working there and I've been tracking, about being there from 6 in the morning to like 7 at night. And, mostly my deliveries from my other restaurants gonna do the same thing. 2 times a week, maybe 3 times. That's about it, have control, but I don't think it will be issue because it will be plenty room to loading from the back. So I don't think abstract that. And besides, regarding the license time, as Laura exactly it is, because I don't know the customer base right there. I own 3 other restaurants in Kingfield and Tangletown, and they're the same hours, but the latest, like mostly on my restaurants, like 10, 11 o'clock in the weekend. So I don't know how, I just try to have those for the customers in Powderhorn, like plant-based. So, and I think so.
So I'm just wondering, I understand you are a very successful and well-liked restaurant owner. Maybe you could tell us the names of the other restaurants.
I have one. It is my oldest is Cafeína. It's right there for 8 years. Prior to that, I own El Mesón that I took over when I was 21 years old, establishment. So I had it for 11 years. So, and then after that is Rincon 38. It's on 38 and Grand. It's Spanish cuisine. And then recently, La Fresca that is in Tangletown, 2 blocks of south of Cafeína. And now, I used to live in Powderhorn, 94 to 98 back then, and 35th and 12, right? Those apartment buildings. So, and my parents, they used to live in 44 and 16. So I just get to know, like Southwest, Minneapolis have a lot of great restaurants. And I say, why not bring it now to the other side? So that was the whole vision that I have without jeopardizing anybody. For me, I'm just like, do what I love the most, and I think I'm doing right. And I'm just, trust me, having 3 restaurants, one more, I don't want to be there until 1:30 in the morning. I'm just going to have options for the customers, right, in the restaurant. So that's how it is. I went to approve from 7 to 1:30, but it's not.
Great. Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am pleased to make this motion to approve the item as outlined in the staff recommendation. I just do want to take a point to mention that Mr. Ruiz is an outstanding business owner. He's been able to operate the two restaurants, Cafe Enya and La Fresca, with great community support in a heavily residential area. I'm very sensitive to a lot of the residents' concerns, including parking, which they didn't have parking requirements for those restaurants either, and a terrific operator and a pleasure to have in the Tangletown neighborhood, and we'd like to extend that opportunity for him, other neighborhoods to enjoy. So with that motion, I'd be happy to move for approval.
On the motion to approve, are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Perhaps you could chat with the neighbors and see if there's any specific questions that you could answer for them as well. On to item number 10, which is Sal's on Fifth. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have an extended hours license request by Sal's Pizzeria, Inc., Sal's on Fifth at 10 North Fifth Street. We have new owners at this restaurant. They are currently allowed to be open from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. daily, and they are seeking to extend the closing hours to 3:30 a.m. A public hearing is required for this license application, and we did notify all residents and property owners within 300 feet. We notified the Warehouse District Business Association, Downtown Minneapolis, and North Loop Residents Associations. To date, we've received no responses for or against the application. The applicant has reviewed their security plans with the Minneapolis Police Department at the first precinct, and they have developed a security plan which does include hiring off-duty officers on specific days, predominantly on weekends, holidays, and special events. With that in mind, staff's recommendation is that you approve this extended hours license.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 10? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 10, which is a new license at 10 North Fifth Street. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Amanda Lazup. I'm a co-owner at Sal's on Fifth along with my brother. I first just want to thank the city and the council members for your time and consideration on this matter, and also for your initiative to support small businesses like ours and provide late night food options. I think it's really a great move. We are going into our second summer being open now, and we're really excited about that. Having just short of a year under our belts, I think it's given us the insight needed to really understand the responsibility that goes with staying open past 2 a.m. It's a restaurant that really relies on foot traffic. We pay a lot of attention to our display counter and kind of try to grab people's attention that way. So to have to close at 2 a.m. when it's like the highest volume of foot traffic in front of our place is really hard to do. And having the opportunity to serve those people would be a night and day difference for a restaurant like ours. That being said, we understand the complications and challenges. Yes, that's a good word about the area. And we want to be productive, active members in the community. That's why we've taken a lot of consideration when putting together our security plan. And we've also agreed to conditions set forth through licensing. And we really take that commitment seriously. And we just kind of think it's a trial and error kind of thing. And we're willing to work with the community and with the city and council in the future with it.
Great,
So
thank you for your testimony.
Yep.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I happily move approval of this item, and I will note that since our initiative to expand food options in late night hours, we've had, I believe, 3 or 4 applicants already come forward. Every single one of them has been extremely successful. I mean, they are just raking in the dough right now. So as we roll up the sidewalks, the money has certainly been flowing into these businesses. So I encourage a few more to apply as well. And this is I think, a really good strategy to sop up some of the alcohol, expand the activity downtown, and create a really more of a vibrant 24-hour atmosphere. So happily move approval.
On Councilmember Fry's motion to approve, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to our last public hearing item, which is item number 11, the license upgrade for the Bad Waitress. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Bad Waitress is a restaurant that has a on-sale wine license and strong beer Class E. They've had that for several years. They are seeking to upgrade that entertainment level to a C1, which will allow live amplified music by 5 musicians. A public hearing is required. We did a mailing within 600 feet of this establishment. With a large mailing, 450 notices were mailed. We also notified the Whittier Alliance Neighborhood Group and the Whittier Business Association. From that notification, we received 1 response, and that response was in support of the application. Staff recommends approval.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 11? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 11. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Reich.
Madam Chair, I move the item before us.
Item number 11 has been moved. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to our remaining item, which is item number 21, the Target Center renovation project, and I'd invite Mr. Carpenter to come up and give the report.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, before you today is a request for council to authorize staff to enter into a renovation agreement with our partners AEG and the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx to provide for a major renovation of the city-owned facility known as the Target Center, with terms that are modified from those the council previously approved in November of 2013. Parenthetically, before I get into the details, I would like to note that while the facility is city-owned, we fund the capital and operations in the arena from a variety of sources, including TIF, entertainment tax from the events at the arena, parking revenues related to events in the arena, rent that the team pays, and a portion of the 4 so-called hospitality taxes generated in the city. The 0.5% or 0.5% citywide sales tax, the lodging tax, and the downtown liquor and restaurant tax. The point of all that is that we operate it without any costs borne by the city's general property taxpayers. Since the original approval of the term sheet in November of 2013, the design group, which is comprised of 3 members appointed by the city, Jeff Johnson from the Convention Center, Steve Mattson, our operator from AEG, and myself, and 3 members from the team, Chris Wright, who is here from the team, and Rob Moore and Ted Johnson. We've been working diligently, regularly, to move this important project forward. The first order of business was, of course, hiring consultants to help us. We hired an owner's rep, designers, architects, and construction managers. And then we commenced the iterative process of designing, doing schematic designs, cost estimating, redesigning because it was too expensive, re-estimating, redesigning again because it was still too expensive, re-estimating, etc. It is that process that led the design group to conclude that to do the renovation project right and achieve our collective objective of ensuring that the arena is a quality, viable, competitive entertainment venue for the next 2 decades, we need to propose some revisions to the initial terms, which is what we're presenting today and is outlined in the report. These proposed modifications include increasing the budget for the renovation project itself by approximately $30 million to a total of roughly $130 million. Of that $30 million increase, $24.5 million would be provided by the city, $5 million will come from the team, and $500,000 will come from AEG. The arena originally was built is about 25 years old, originally built in 1990 or so. And it is the design group's belief that this is a sensible solution to get it to extend its useful life for at least 2 more decades. It is probably the oldest arena in the city, in the nation, that has not had a major renovation. There have been arenas that were built subsequent to the Target Center that have been totally torn down and totally rebuilt in other cases. So the design group is recommending moving forward with this because we believe it's a sensible solution to extend the useful life of this important city asset. Why do we need to increase the budget? The primary reason, of course, is the recent and the projected continued escalation in construction costs. Other major changes to the terms that were approved in November that I want to highlight, the report covers more of them, include a reduction in the amount of future contractually obligated commitments that the city will make to put investments into the arena from what was originally $50 million, reducing it to $20 million. In addition, the modifications include each of the team and AEG extending their existing agreements to occupy or operate the arena, as the case may be, until 2035. The original deal had them extended from 2025 to 2032. So we are extending it by 3 years. And that the private parties, AEG and the team, will now be privately financing their contribution to the project rather than using city financing and paying us back. The key financial consequences of the proposed revisions include that with these private parties financing on their own, the city will issue fewer GO bonds to fund the renovation agreement than we would have been doing under the prior model where we were also financing for the team and AEG. At the same time, because the city's contribution and our share of the projected cost of the renovation increases from $50 million approximately to $75 million approximately, the annual debt service costs of the city's share, again to be paid for by these 4 hospitality taxes, will be higher on an annual basis than it would have been under the original term sheet, excuse me. However, a mitigating factor against that is the fact that with this 3-year extension of the duration of the agreements, we will be amortizing our debt over a slightly longer period, so that will mitigate somewhat the increased annual debt service costs. A preliminary estimate of the amount of the increase in the debt service costs is somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million annually for the new higher contribution. While that is a large number in a vacuum, compared to the magnitude of the hospitality taxes that in recent years have been generating $55 to $60 million and growing, we believe this relatively small compared to that total increase in debt service will not overly burden other activities that we fund with these hospitality taxes, like the convention center or Meet Minneapolis or other purposes as decided by the council. The reduction in the city's contractual obligation for future investment, going down from $50 million to $20 million, does provide future councils with more flexibility to address then current city priorities in the face of the then current resources that are available. While it is also highly likely that the city's cumulative investment in the facility for the next 20 years exceeds this $20 million number, this flexibility by reducing the contractually committed amount does give future councils significant leeway to decide precisely on an annual basis how much more to put in and when to put it in. In short, we believe that this revised proposal is a sensible approach to investing more now, along with our private sector partners, to facilitate 20 more years in an important city-owned entertainment value that does serve as a major component to contributing to the overall economic vitality to downtown and the city. Remember that the hospitality taxes that are often generated through visitors, whether they're coming to a Target Center event or just to a restaurant, are now flexible dollars So we can use them as we deem appropriate going forward to fund city needs. If approved, the design team will move into more detailed construction documents, leading to a GMP contract with our construction manager. That, along with the bonding authorizations, will come forward to council later this year. With that, I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Carpenter? Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not particularly a question at this point, but I do wish to make a comment. I think it's a tremendous effort and tad overdue, but now that we've realized what the expanded costs are associated with it, as we approach this project, it's really in partnership with AEG and, of course, the Timberwolves links. And it's really an extension of something the city already owns. It's a major asset to our entertainment district and a major source of revenues for our hospitality taxes, as you outlined, Mr. Carpenter. I just wanted to point out that Target Center does not operate just for the Timberwolves. This is an amazing venue. I think Mr. Johnson has mentioned it before, and associated with convention center activities, but it has ranked 13th or 15th in the world in terms of arenas for ticket sales, and number 3 in the nation if you factor in the Garth Brooks number. What that generates for the city is a tremendous benefit, both for the income for the city to operate and provide all that flexibility for doing many things within the city, but it also is a great source of employment for our businesses and our residents. So I just wanted to acknowledge the work of the finance staff and the attorney's office, as well as our partners at Timberwolves Links and AEG. And I think it's a solid recommendation, well thought out, doesn't burden taxpayers, and just allows us to keep raising the level of vitality that we need in this particular arena that is city owned. So we should take care of our own assets. So thank you for your work on that, and thank you for your partnership.
Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam President. Just sort of building off of what Councilmember Quincy shared, you can try to wish away an obligation, but that doesn't make it so. We have an obligation, and I think here we're moving forward in a way that's frugal versus other alternatives that might be politically feasible, but negligent in terms of our obligations. And so we have a very frugal but an appropriate way to do it. And by advancing some of the dollars, we're going to get some of the bang for it, some of the upfront public advantage that have been already outlined in testimony and also by Councilmember Quincy. That those upfront advantages really come alive when a building's brought forward in a public-centric, dynamic, beautiful sort of way. And I know the committee has really worked to draw those qualities out. I think it'd be something we'll be proud of, not something that we regret. And I really appreciate the frugal approach to getting those outcomes and getting them done in a very financially sound way.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To tack on to Councilmember Quincy's use of statistics, I think he's 15th in the world, 3 in the country in terms of ticket sales approximately. Well, I heard another statistic just the other day, which is we are second worst in terms of the condition of the arena itself. So when you combine the good that we're already getting with the present bad, clearly the arena is in need of some refurbishing, especially since we own it. I had one question, and it's less of a question than maybe you just want to repeat it for me. But you mentioned how this action today is taken in part because it will be less binding on future councils. And I just want to understand a little bit better how that works.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Frye, the initial term sheet approved in November of 2013 by the prior council included a provision that as part of the renovation project, the city would commit contractually to invest $50 million into the arena after the renovation project was completed. What we're proposing in the action today is we would revise and modify that term to reduce the commitment from $50 million to $20 million in terms of our contractual obligation.
Okay, so in other words, if future council does not feel that it's necessary to go beyond the $20 million worth of refurbishing and investment, they don't need to.
That is correct.
Okay.
What's the alternative? I guess, as someone who kind of tries to weigh all of the options in front of us and make choices and urge my colleagues to make informed choices, what is the alternative to this plan?
Madam Chair, I guess there would be two forms of choices. One would be do nothing, watch the arena crumble over time, deteriorate, and expect that the team would most likely leave the city when their lease expired in 2025. I don't want to speak for the team, but one could reasonably expect that if they don't have a place to play, they would probably be looking elsewhere. Or the alternative could be to do a smaller a smaller renovation project that the design group continually weighs that, but given the opportunity in front of us to get 20 more years out of this, we couldn't find a way to put $50 million, say, rather than $100 million of construction into this and make the kinds of improvements, both for aesthetic purposes on the outside and transformational, the entryways, the circulation, the restrooms, but also in the spaces that attract patrons, suites, premium spaces, clubs, and also fix some very important operational deficiencies as it relates to the back of house and loading docks and things like that. The magnitude of what we need to address here is pretty substantial. So we could not find a way to recommend in good conscience doing half of that renovation.
Thank you for answering that question. As members of the panel know, I'm strongly supporting the recommendation from Mr. Carpenter and the design team for a number of reasons. I want to just briefly talk to them today. I think there is another alternative, and that's to put more money into it. I mean, the truth of the matter is there is sales tax revenue, there is entertainment revenue, and if you were the team, you'd be thinking, why don't you do a $200 million renovation? If we can do something good with $100 million, we can probably do something better with $200 million, right? So, as I've said before, this is not the Cadillac plan. This isn't like where Miami is playing. This isn't like where other big city teams are playing. But we don't want to be at the bottom of the barrel as it pertains to the way facilities are happening either. And I don't believe that with the current budget, we can do much of anything that will improve the arena from the way the public views it and or from the way the public benefits from it. Because the truth of the matter is you can tell the difference between a night when there's a Target Center event in town and you can tell a night that doesn't have a Target Center event in town. If you are a wait staff person in town, if you are a busboy or you cook food in any of the 100 restaurants in the immediate vicinity, you either make a good living that night when there are Target Center events going on, or you make a poor living on that night. This old elephant is still an economic generator for this part of downtown and the people who work there, many of whom live in the city of Minneapolis. The people who are washing dishes and waiting tables and doing those minimum wage plus jobs are our constituents, and they benefit from events in the arena. They benefit from more events in the arena. And while we don't have aspirations to have the best facility in the entire country, we want to be able to be competitive. So there are other alternatives. There's the alternative of doing nothing, and there's the alternative of doing a lot more. I want to talk a minute about the team. I am not a basketball fan. I can probably count on one hand the number of games I've been to. This is, I would say, one of the only teams that has never threatened to leave the city, that has not made threats even to move towards Excel, has worked to try to keep the Lynx in the city during the renovation, and hopefully they will be successful in that endeavor. They have ownership that lives in the state of Minnesota. Their key leadership are people that live in the metro area, and many of their players have done amazing things in our community. So this is a team that we, I think in many ways, and people like me who don't really, I hate to say, care that much about basketball, really I have great respect for the way they've operated in our community, and you can compare them to other unnamed teams who have made other unnamed demands and think about them as being a class act in this kind of conversation. I'll also note that the BMF, that is AEG, has been nothing other than an amazing partner to us. Many people criticize AEG and the big corporation that they are, but they basically operate on a margin and the arena operates at a loss. We share in those losses, but they've done a pretty darn good job of operating the arena. We had the benefit of operating the arena ourselves. The Timberwolves also had the good fortune to operate the arena. How'd that go for you? It was terrible. It was a disaster. You handed it back to us in like 5 minutes. And that's where they did 3 years. I think you operated it for what, 3 years, Chris? And you were not able to really book any concerts at all, right? I think there was like a skating on ice thing there when you guys operated it. It's a very hard job. And AEG does it extremely well. And to be honest, I think we have some of the best AEG people in the system working for us, including the leadership in town, Steve Mattson, who I think has been extremely responsive. So all in all, everyone kind of has a hand in the good and bad that is coming from this. I particularly like something Councilmember Fry asked about earlier, and that is we're not tying the hands of future councils to make decisions about future monetary improvements in the arena as it compares to other city priorities and resources. I've always felt uncomfortable over the past 18 years being forced to do something because a previous council had demanded we do so. I just spoke earlier about the 20-year parking agreement we had that kept us from not renovating or building or selling on that mill parcel site because some previous council committed us to 20 years of parking lot hell. We aren't going to have that going forward. We're saying there's a baseline of improvements that have to be made, and then future councils will compare future improvements. My guess is they'll make future improvements because they'll find out, just like we have, that instead of being activists agitating against sports facilities, you have to be realists in governing in the city. And sometimes you have to support things that might not be your personal priority, but you know is a benefit for the entire city. And so although I've never been a fan of any subsidy to sports facilities, this is one I can vote for and justify primarily because of the way it's been structured. I think our staff has done a really amazing job. I think our partners have come to the table. Could have been faster, could have been easier. You could have been easier to deal with. We could have been easier to deal with. But in the end, we got to where we need to be. I think it's an investment that we're making as compared to other investments we're making in the city that will pay off for the biggest number of people in the long run. So as much as I would love to see everyone on the council voting on this, this is one step in a not very long process to get this approved this cycle so we can move forward towards refurbishment of this arena and on to Councilmember Quincy's committee. Are there further comments or questions? Seeing none, I will move to approve the staff recommendation authorizing execution of the renovation agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved unanimously. Seeing no further business before us, we are adjourned.